For this warm-up question, try to see if you can remember different angle properties. So we're dealing with interior angles of a triangle. We've got some exterior angles of a polygon here. We've got parallel lines. And we've got some other angle properties of triangles over here. So pause the video, see what you can remember, and try to figure out what each of these missing angles is. So for this first one, we have to remember all the interior angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So this has to be 127 degrees. For this shape down here, we're dealing with all exterior angles. The exterior angles of any polygon add up to 360 degrees. So that's why this has to be 80 degrees. Up here, we have two parallel lines, so we're looking for different patterns. Here we have a Z pattern, so we know this angle and this angle have to be the same. And down here, well, here's 120 degrees. This is a straight line, so these two angles have to add up to 180 degrees. Now that we know that this is 60 degrees, this is an isosceles triangle, so that means these angles have to be the same down here. And all three angles have to add up to 180. So if I take away this 60 degrees, I'm left with 120 that needs to be divided equally between these two angles. So it ends up that they're all 60 degrees. So in this video, we're going to be solving problems using geometry. And these are more algebra type problems that we're going to be solving. So remember those angle properties that we went through in the warm-up. Interior angles, exterior angles, parallel lines. You got to remember all those in order to solve these problems. So here's the first problem. Solve for x. Well, we've got angles here, but these angles are algebraic expressions. That's weird. However, don't freak out just because you see an algebraic expression instead of a single number. It doesn't mean the angle properties have all of a sudden changed. If you'll recall, the exterior angle is equal to the sum of the two interior angles on the other side of the triangle. So because we know the sum of these two angles is equal to this angle, we can write this equation. The sum of the two interior angles in the triangle is equal to the exterior angle on the opposite side. That's the angle property of the triangle we're using. So now that I have an equation, I can solve for x using my algebra. So I have to identify my like terms, collect my like terms, simplify, and solve. So a consistent thing that people get wrong when they're doing algebra is when you're collecting your like terms and you're moving terms to the other side, you forget to do the opposite operation. So on the right, this is plus 3x. So when I move it over, it's now minus 3x. Likewise over here, when it's plus 25 on the left, I move it, now it's minus 25 on the right. Plus 15 on the left, minus 15 on the right. Another thing that people do is they just start changing the signs for everything. So they might change this to a minus x, even though it's staying on the same side. So that's an issue you have to make sure you're not doing. You have to only change the signs if you're crossing the equal sign. In this example, we have parallel lines. So we've got an angle here, 2x minus 3, and an angle here, 8x plus 15. So we want to solve for x. In order to do that, we need to use our angle properties. So we have parallel lines. We have to think about Z patterns, F patterns, C patterns, those types of things. So what pattern do we see here? Well, that looks like an F to me. So this angle is the same as this angle in here. So because those two angles are the same, I can say 8x plus 15 equals 2x minus 3. Now I have an equation. I can solve it. I just have to go through the process of solving using algebra. So identify your like terms, collect your like terms, simplify, and solve. So again, just change the signs for your terms if you're crossing the equal sign. So plus 2x becomes minus 2x, but 8x stays the same because I'm keeping it on the same side. Likewise, minus 3, I'm keeping it on the right-hand side, so it stays the same. It's still minus 3. But the plus 15, I'm moving it to the other side. Now it's minus 15. 8x minus 2x is 6x. Minus 3 minus 15, that's minus 18. So 6x equals minus 18. Divide both sides by whatever the coefficient is on your variable. Negative 18 divided by positive 6 is negative 3. So x is negative 3. For this last example here, I've got a weird shape, and I've got a bunch of angles on the inside, and we want to solve for x, just like we did before. So what do we know? What angle properties do we know for this? We know there are 6 angles. We know they're all interior angles. So what do we know about the interior angles of a polygon? Well, if you'll recall back to spiral 1, we had this formula, 180 times n minus 2. That gave us the sum of the interior angles for an n-sided shape. So n is just the number of sides. This is a 6-sided shape, so n is 6. So n minus 2 is 4. 180 times 4 is 720. So the sum of these interior angles is 720. So that's where I'm going to make my equation. I'm just going to add all of these angles to get 720. So that's where this equation comes from. So now that I have an equation, I can just go through the process. Identify your like terms, collect your like terms, then simplify, and divide by the coefficient to solve. So again, once you have your equation set, don't forget to pay careful attention to the signs. All of these that I've highlighted in blue, these like terms, they're all on the left-hand side. I'm keeping them all on the left-hand side, so none of them have a sign change. The ones I have in green, though, well, the 720 is staying on the right, so it stays the same. But plus 120 on the left becomes minus 120 on the right. Minus 6, now it's plus 6. Plus 14, now it's minus 14. Minus 8, now it's plus 8. So be careful. When you add all these together, it's 30x. When you add these together, it's 600. The coefficient on the x is 30, so divide both sides by 30. You get x equals 20. So there's really nothing new in this lesson. We've already seen all of these angle properties. We've already seen this algebra. Now we're just putting the two together. So as you do some practice with this, if you get stuck or you need some help, let me know and I'll do my best to help.